Okay, today we are here in Truckee, California. My house is just about a mile from here, and we're doing some work on this house that we've done a lot of projects on before. We did some small electrical stuff, and then we did, this is actually the place where we built the custom fireplace around. We have a separate video about that project. Turned out really great. I'll throw some pictures up on the screen now. And this is where that project went down. Today we are actually doing another fireplace. This time it's just a little electric fireplace that's wall mounted, and then we're going to do some trim work around it so that make it nice and sexy, and we're going to get started on that project right now. So let's go inside and we will get to work. Welcome to Revival Remodels. I'm Kyle, the founder, and this is my partner Megan. We've been remodeling homes our entire lives, and we're here to share our expert advice and money-saving tips on home improvement, remodeling, rental properties, and more. Okay, let's get in here and have a look. Already got most of our tools inside, and this is the fireplace we're going to be replacing. This is the old one, just a little plug in the wall fireplace, and it's kind of gotten old. Got this glass panel. It can be wall mounted or recess mounted. And then we got all our parts, brackets, and fancy crystals that will go inside once we're done. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be wall mounting this, and then the homeowner had some Pinterest photos that she found with some nice wood trim that goes around it. So we're going to be getting rid of this guy, wall mounting the new one right here. And then we'll build a trim around it. It's going to be hardwired, so we got some electrical work to do as well. All right, let's get started. First thing I like to do, get anything that could be broken out of the way, because I can be rough sometimes. I actually installed this outlet before. Their old configuration, they had the dangling wires, and I have a separate video in our video list that you can see on how to add an outlet behind your TV. Would highly recommend that. And so I know that there's power coming to this bottom outlet, and I know that the power runs right up the wall to this outlet because I remember running that wire. So what we're going to do here, the homeowner wants to maintain use of this outlet for auxiliary use, maybe plug it in a vacuum cleaner or something. So the fireplace that we're installing, it actually has a wired connection already sort of pre-wired into it that you can just plug in to this outlet and it would work fine. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to hardwire it from this outlet, and the hardwire configuration will kind of end up over here. And then what we need to do is tap into the wiring here, and we'll have a short wire leg come off that will be hardwired into this configuration inside this box. And then over here, it'll poke out the wall and then go right into the fireplace. Let's go ahead and pull this apart. We know we got to do that no matter what. We haven't shut the power off yet. I always wait to do that until I've got everything undone, because I like to see if there's any testing that needs to be done. In this box, I don't anticipate any, but sometimes you open a box and it's really confusing, and if the power's shut off, then you don't really have a way to test to see what's what. So I'll typically pull this out without touching the sides or back in any way, just to see what we've got in here. So when I open up the box, I'm looking for a couple things, right? What gauge is the wire? Typically is the first thing, because if I'm going to branch off of this circuit and do another device on it, I need to make sure my wire size matches. Typically in a residential application, you're only going to have two sizes when you open up an outlet box. It's going to be the 14 gauge wire that's in a white vinyl jacket, or it's going to be the 12 gauge wire that's in a yellow vinyl jacket. I can already tell based on experience. I don't even have to look at it. I can just hold one of the wires in my hand and bend it, and I can tell from memory that this is the wire that's a little harder to bend. That's the 12 gauge wire. It's going to be thicker. If I grab a hold of this and I can bend it super easy without hardly any resistance, then I know it's a 14 gauge wire. Now, that's not a very scientific method, I understand, but there are other ways you can figure out the wire size. I can just see the yellow jacket up in there, which is one way, so I know it's 12 gauge. The other way, they make little gauges that you can put on the wire and it'll kind of measure it for you. But I don't have the patience to carry those around. Looks like a business card and you can slide it over top. So I don't really keep one of those on hand. But the other way, if you have a pair of wire strippers like this, has a 12 and a 14 gauge stripping hole on there, and if you look at it you can see the size difference, and then you could just apply that once your power is off. You don't want to do this while the power is on, but you could just put that over one of the wires that you have there in a safe place where you're not going to damage the sheathing, like the tip of the wires where you'd want to put that, and that can kind of measure it for you as well. But once you've done this for a while and you bend 14-2 and you bend 12-2 wire with your hands, you can sort of just do it from muscle memory. And here's our fireplace. These are really common these days. They put off heat, has a little fan, got some fancy lights in there, and a lot of people like these. They're pretty high consumption devices. They do take a lot of power. This one's rated at 1500 watts and it pulls, I believe, 12 amps of power. So I'm going to advise the homeowner that we're going to be tapping into an existing circuit to prevent us from having to run a brand new one. And when you turn this fireplace on, it's going to consume almost all the amperage of the circuit. It's a 20 amp circuit with 12 gauge wire, and this is a 12 amp device. And so that means 12 out of the 20 amps on this circuit are going to be occupied when this fireplace is on full blast. So you wouldn't be able to plug in a space heater and this fireplace, or a blender and this fireplace, because that's going to exceed the capacity of the circuit and the breaker's going to trip. Let's look at our hardware. It's pretty rare that you're going to be able to land on a stud in the wall, given the layout here. And looking at the hardware, they've included these little wall anchors. These are about the worst thing that you could ever use. If you ever have these or see these with any product that you purchase, just throw them in the garbage. If you're going to need a wall anchor because you're not going to land on a stud or framing in the wall, I'm going to show you the kind that you want to use. And I even have a little pro tip that I'll show you. In addition to just using the wall anchor, I have a solution that makes it way stronger. All right, so let's get our brackets on. I've already taken a look at the instructions. We've got these tiny little Phillips head screws, and it looks like each bracket takes 3 of those. Never like to tighten anything all the way during install, because you never know when you might need a little wiggle room. All right, that one's on that side. Let's take 3 screws and we'll do this one on this side. Both brackets are on the left and right side. What we can do next, this part here is the factory wiring that it comes with, and it's got this factory plug that you can just put into an outlet, but we're not going to use that. cover comes off. And then inside here, we got 3 wires. Looks like we need a tiny little flathead. Got this Klein screwdriver that has 12 functions and is highly recommended by electricians. I've had this thing for about 6 months, and literally the other day I just threw all my screwdrivers away. I was like, this thing does everything I need. So I'll put a link to this in the description. It's a Klein screwdriver 12-in-1. Okay, the battery died on my camera there, but we're back in action, and gonna wire up this little manifold here. If you can see, it's hard to see actually. We've got the 3 wires coming in out of the wiring harness that has the regular plug on it, and we loosened all 3 of those there. Squeeze it, but it doesn't come out. There we go. Got her. All right, so that's the old wiring harness, and we're going to leave it just like this for now so that we can go ahead and do our layout and mock this thing up on the wall, and then we'll draw a real specific spot where we want to come out and poke out of the wall so that we meet right up with this wiring harness with this wire. Okay, for the layout, I like to use some blue tape, painter's tape, and a pencil. Make it nice and easy. Now the width of the wall here is about 6 feet, and the TV is actually mounted off center. It looks like it's 42 inches from that corner and only 32 inches from the left side of the wall. So I asked the homeowner, hey, do you want me to center the fireplace on this wall section? And so the center would be over here. Or do you want me to center the fireplace directly under the TV? And they said they wanted to do it directly under the TV. So that's cool with me. Let's do the layout, and we're going to figure out exactly where on the wall we need to drill our holes for the mounting brackets and wall anchors to go into, and then we're also going to figure out where we want to poke out our electrical hardwire line up here in the top right. Okay, so for our layout, I have marked a center line on the wall here using my level, and I use 2 pieces of blue tape to kind of highlight that for you, because these pencil marks can be hard to see on screen. And so from that center line, if you're wondering, how do I get this thing level? How do I make sure it's going to be centered? How do I make sure the 4 holes that are required are going to line up? So what I like to do, there's 4 holes on the back of this thing, and I like to measure exactly how far apart they are. So if I put my tape measure in that hole and I pull it all the way over to this mounting hole, I've got 48.5. So that means I want 24.25 from my center line out to where these holes are going to be. So it measures 48.5. So I know from the center line I want to be 24.25 to the left and to the right. So from that center line, instead of putting the tip of your tape measure on there, which can kind of give you a bad reading sometimes, I'll slide it over to the 10, and I'll put my 10 on the center line, and then over here, instead of 24.25, I'm looking for 34.25. And I've made a pencil mark here at 34.25, aka 24.25. And then the same thing over here. If I put my 10 on our center line, I've made a pencil mark right over here that you may not be able to see at 24.25 again. So we know that from our center line, our 2 marking spots, which I'll kind of highlight with tape, are right here. Just kind of putting the tape beside my marks just to highlight where they are, because I don't think you can see the pencil. But you really don't have to do this step. There we go. Okay, so now what we want to do, we established our vertical height that we want. We came up with those two measurements. We took the height from the bottom of the unit to the two mounting holes, and then we added 2 inches to make sure that our glass frame and our switch plate on the wall outlet here has clearance so we don't hit it. So I drew a starting point here, and then up from that starting point, again I'll put my tape on the 10, and then I drew a line, probably can't see, right here and right here in the middle at our 2 numbers that we came up with, which were 8 3/8 and 13 3/4. That's going to put us at the vertical height that we want. And I've got 2 marks here. One is the bottom mounting hole, and then the other is the top mounting hole. My level's not quite long enough. If I had a laser level, it would be a lot sexier, but what I did was then made 2 marks on the left and the right here. My level's perfect. Put my level on that top mark I made. Make sure it's level and perfect. And then I've already made the 2 marks for the top and the bottom hole. Okay, so if you remember earlier, the wall anchors that came with this thing, I told you to throw them away because they're no good. And I already threw them away, or I would show you an example, but the ones that are the best are the white ones that have the screw design on them. And they have a tip on them that's actually designed to poke into the wall for you. I'll show you a pro tip, because even these can fail. Most wall anchors are pretty weak. So instead of using the tip of the wall anchor, you can put your drill in here, and then it'll kind of like has its own built-in drill bit. But I found that those can crack off. So a little pro tip that I use, I'll just take my Phillips bit and I'll line it up right with the hole where I want it. And I just run my Phillips bit right through the wall like that. If it's only drywall here, it'll fall right through quick and easy. Okay, and what that does is saves the tip of your anchor, make sure it stays intact and doesn't get damaged on the way in. Okay, so now for that pro tip that I promised you, that was already one pro tip. Is instead of using the wall anchor to drill in the wall, just poke your Phillips bit through there. But the other one I want to show you is a real pro tip. I always keep around, you're going to see this a lot on my videos, Gorilla Glue construction adhesive. And so what this does, if you just put this wall anchor in here, over time, man, houses shift, things move, people yank on stuff, and this can still come loose. Even though it's the strongest anchor that I've tried out of hundreds or dozens of them. So what I'll do is I'll take the construction adhesive, I pulled the lid off there, and I'm just going to basically get a bunch of adhesive on my wall anchor. And so you put this around all sides, get it nice and goopy, but not too much that it's going to splooge out on you. And I'll stick that one right in there, just let it rest for a minute. Squeeze my tube here. I'm going to grab some more adhesive on the next one. Now we're ready to drive them in. You can drive them in with a drill. I would recommend putting it on speed 1, backing the drill down so it doesn't have so much power. And we'll drive these in. Alright, all 4 of those nice and tight. And now we want to let this set for about an hour. And that's cool because we have some other work to do. So now, all 4 of our anchors, after about an hour of setup, those are going to be so rock solid, nothing's going to pull them out. Okay, it's time for electrical. We've got our electrical components, and the hard wire is going to come out right here. So basically what I'm going to do, looking at this mounting hole, I want my hard wire to come out just above this top right mounting hole. It's going to be right about there. So I've got a little crosshair. I'm going to put a piece of blue tape so you can see it. Got a little crosshair right there. That's where we want the wire to come out. And then we're going to need that wire to go over here and then down and into this box. I'm going to take out a section. I'll use my level. So keeping in mind that's where we want our hole, I'm going to put my level right about here, centered on where we want that hole, because I need to run it over and then straight down into the box. So here's what we're going to cut out, is right here. There we go. And I'll get up here a little closer with the camera so you can see exactly what we got here. There's our pencil mark. This hole, or this blue tape over here, is marking where the wire is going to come out. And then this pencil mark that we just traced around our level ends directly above the box. And that's how we're going to get the wire from that little hole over here and down. You only want to pierce this a 1/2 inch deep so that you don't go all the way through and hit those wires. All right, so we want to hold on to this because we're going to put that right back in this hole. So I'm going to put our hole in the wall, pull my tape off so I can see the exact location. Again, live wires in the wall, could be plumbing back there. So we don't want to go through more than a 1/2 inch. And that's it. Giant drill bit for a small job. Look at that. It's going to be beautiful. So we're going to come up from this box and then up and over, and we do need to drill a hole right here through this framing member. Sometimes if you're lucky you can find a pre-existing hole, but I don't feel any. There we go. Okay. Got the wire through the box. Now we're just going to feed it up little by little. Shimmy this up. Make sure you don't cut the wire on the way in. Angle this up and put kind of a little bit of a bend on it. We'll just play a little carnival game here. It needs to come up. Stick my pencil in there to kind of control it. There we go. There it is, I can see it. And we got her. Okay, so here's our little drywall patch. So we're gonna screw that back into place. Always try to get it to land right on the framing so that when you go to put the drywall patch back, you've already got some backing support. Okay. There we go. We'll tighten that up with some drywall mud and we'll be in good shape. Let's go ahead and shut this power off and then we'll go ahead with the wiring connections. Got our electrical sniffer set on high voltage setting, and sure enough, none of these wires are hot, so we found our breaker. That was easy, first try. Go ahead and trim these back about 3/4 to an inch. Get this ready for connection. Okay, make sure you got the sheathing sticking out just about a 1/2 inch or so. And then I'll go ahead and put those wires way up top there so they don't hit anything. All right, other than the drywall patch, we can go ahead and mount this thing. What I'm doing here is prepping for the drywall mud. When you put a patch in, you want to create a little bit of a V. I'll do I got a ton of separate videos on patching drywall, so I'm not going to drag you through the entire process here, but if you got your pocket knife handy, you make a little tiny V there. That looks good enough. We're going to fill it right up with mud anyway. All right, so let's stick our screw in here. Our glue's not dry yet, so I don't want to agitate this thing too much. But I just want to leave a little less than a 1/4 inch, maybe an 1/8 inch. I think we should be okay to mount it. Okay. Let's try to line up our holes here. Okay, got that one. There she goes. Okay. So let's take our level, see how we look here. There's a bunch of screws on top of this thing that'll throw my level off. Well, that is perfectly level. There's our level, so our little layout method worked beautifully. And we're now mounted. All right, let's get this mixed up. I'm gonna show you my secret weapon. Megan got really mad at me because I took all these out of the kitchen, but this is the best way, fastest way, and best way to mix drywall compound. I don't need much here. We're just filling a super small crack around our patch. Put your water in first, and then throw your dry compound in there. It's always best to use the compound that you mix. Never buy the stuff at the store that is pre-mixed. An old drywall guy told me that one day a long time ago, and I listened, and he was right. Any of that pre-mixed stuff is not optimal. When you do the mixture live like this, it's just fresh, it's fluffier, goes on smoother, sands better. Any of that pre-made, pre-mixed is gonna cause you trouble down the line. It's gonna shrink up, it's gonna be too hard to sand. That's it. And the nice thing is you just stick this under the sink for about 2 seconds, and you can see here, look how whipped that is. It's perfect. And I did that in like 20 seconds maybe. All right, now that we're mixed up, nice and creamy, kind of just slosh it around a little bit, concentrate it down here on one end. All we're looking to do is fill in that V groove that we created earlier, right around here. So I'll put on way more than is necessary. And since this is going to be fully covered with our fireplace, and then our trim surround is going to stick out 4 inches, I'm not even going to come back here and second coat this. This is going to be a bit of a squeeze in here. Got a lot of wires, but it can be done. All right, we're going to take our neutral, since that one looks the closest. I'm going to twist it right into this existing twist here. I'll usually find a little groove to lay it in, and then I'll grab the whole darn thing, and it'll just sort of integrate right into that twist. Crank this thing all the way down. Make sure all the wires are included in the threads of the wire nut. Then I'll even do the old pull test, see if any of them are loose or want to come out. But they're all tight, that's good to go. Same thing with the ground. I'll find a little spot in the existing twist, and then I'll kind of twist it in the groove with my finger just to get it kind of going in that direction. And then keeping my hands back so hopefully you can see this.
just integrate that right into the existing twist. If you got any little whiskers sticking out the end, you can just trim those off. Nice and tight, that feels good. All right, I got my black wire here. It's gonna feed the fireplace. I'm gonna wrap it in this groove here. Nice twist. I'm gonna trim it back just a hair. Got a little bit too much. There we go. Feel this going on well. Good to go. All right. Make sure none of the wires come out or break, since there's a lot in here. Okay, I'll use the rubber end of the hammer. Kind of work it from side to side. Start on the bottom. Get that started about halfway, about 3/4, and then I'll come back, make sure I'm lined up and level and sitting flush with the wall. There we go. This is actually going to be concealed behind the trim that we're making, so you won't even see this really, but it will be there for use if necessary. Always put your screws vertical, mainly because if you don't, electricians will make fun of you. Okay, let's make the connections here for our little wiring harness. Let's try this. There she goes, got it. Okay, I think we only need about 1/4 inch off here, and then 1/4 inch off this black one. There we go. Okay. Now we'll tighten it up. Got her. Okay. All right, there's our hard wire. And I'll fill that in with a little bit of caulk or foam. And we're bedroom 2 back on. Close our lid. Let's go see if we got any action in here. It's a little light, but there it is. We got power. All right. Power button. Oh, holy cow, look at that. It's even got sound effects. That thing's killer. We've got 2 more screws to put in, and we're going to tighten these bracket screws up. We got 3 on each side. Feels good and tight. And these holes are lining up perfectly. Nice and tight. Nice and tight. Hit these 3 on the side of the bracket that we left loose when we started. Last thing I want to do is just a brief test fit. We've spent a couple hours in the shop back at my house, and we've come up with the prototype here. We're going to do a quick test fit. Looks something like this when it's done. We've got a 2x cedar going with a 45 bevel on the inside, and then a 1x as the third piece of this assembly. And that's the goal, is to try to assemble this thing at home in a picture frame sort of fashion. You can imagine it right here. There we go. So that looks good. I think we are ready to proceed. We're going to take this back to the shop and finally assemble this, and then we're going to cut the bottom at the 45-degree angle as well, so that we have a perfect picture frame to go right around this, and it'll slide right around that housing in a prefabricated box. Okay, so here's how we came up with our size for the picture frame surround. The depth is 4¼ the width is 48 inches, and the height is 16 inches. So back in the shop I sketched that out. 16 inches tall, 48 inches wide, and the depth we're going to set it out from the wall will be 4 1/8 inches so that it will slide right behind the glass. The width, or the thickness, or the profile if you will, if you're staring directly at the picture frame, the thickness will be 4 inches out from the fireplace on all sides. So I used my framing square to figure out that a 48-inch inside dimension with a profile of 4 inches will result in an outside dimension of 58 inches to the outside corner. For the side pieces, the inside width or dimension will be 16 inches, and a profile of 4 inches all the way around the perimeter results in an outside dimension of 26 inches. So 58 inches wide, 26 inches tall be the outside dimensions. And with those in mind, I always like to cut my material a few inches longer than necessary to account for any unexpected situations like the wood chipping on me or a knot in the wood getting in the way of our beautiful design. The picture frame consists of 3 pieces in total. For the top and the bottom, I cut a 2x6 cedar board to 60 inches, which is 2 inches longer than I actually need. And I took another piece of cedar and made it in the shape of a triangle with my table saw, which has a 45-degree bevel on it, and I also cut that to 60 inches. I then cut a 1x cedar board 3.5 inches wide and to that same 60-inch length. For the side pieces, I cut all 3 components to 28 inches length, which is again 2 inches longer than I needed just to be safe and make sure we have plenty of material to work with. When I cut the pieces to length initially, I went ahead and made the 45-degree angle cuts on them so that as soon as they were cut, we could begin to lay them out on the ground and visualize them all coming together in a picture frame fashion with 45-degree corners. To assemble the components, I used Gorilla Glue construction adhesive, one of my favorite tools in my toolbox, and I glued all the pieces together. Then I used 2-inch trim screws and a few finish nails to mechanically fasten the components together. Once the 4 sides are glued and screwed together and the initial mock-up is starting to come together on the ground, I was then prepared to cut the pre-assembled components to their final dimensions of a 48-inch width and a 16-inch height to the inner dimensions. I used Gorilla Glue construction adhesive again on all 4 corners and then finish nailed and screwed them together. I like to glue and nail all the corners first to secure them and then use screws to secure my position finally. You'll notice a small section missing at the bottom of the picture frame, and that's on purpose. It's designed to hold a small section of the picture frame that's going to be removable so the homeowner can access the outlet behind the picture frame. And I came up with a clever idea to hold the removable section of the frame on by using magnets. So you'll see that here. I put a backer board on the inside of the picture frame to hold the frame in perfect square even when the removable section of the frame is removed to access the outlet. Lastly, I used Big Stretch caulk, which is an amazing brand of caulking that I use all the time to fill any visible screw holes or nail holes, as well as any inconsistencies or small gaps in the frame once fully assembled. I let that dry and then gave the frame a quick sand using 220 grit sandpaper, and with all of that complete, it is time to dry fit it.
All right, super late, but we're gonna run it over for a dry fit. I just pulled the car in and we are in the middle of a blizzard. Look at this thing. Okay, we're loaded up. Truck's a little crusty. We made it. Snow was deep, but 4-wheel drive, baby. The taco took it. All right, here she is in all her glory. Let's get her in there for a fit. Okay, we're ready to dry fit. Let's go. The moment we've been waiting for.
Booyah. Perfect fit, just as we planned it. Let's get that glass on there. Take a look at that. Make sure this goes on easy. Wow. All right. We are back for the final install. It is snowing outside, 50-mile-an-hour winds, but we're out here in four-wheel drive getting this done. Okay. Nice and easy. Okay. This little tray that goes in here, the ember bed strip, crystals like this, and a bunch of these logs. Stick that down here, slide everything towards the middle. Okay. Very careful. The homeowner had a special request. There is an outlet back here, and she said they use it a lot and they want to maintain access to it. So we built a little custom trap door here, and it's held on by magnets. So you just simply pop this down, and you'll see on the back there's 3 magnets that I put there. These are cheap. I'll put a link to them in the description. You pick them up, I think they're like $2 a set. And then over here, there's the outlet. And we'll pan up, and there's a 3rd magnet right up top there. So the 3 magnets are super strong. And you simply just put this up in there, let the magnets grab, and then you can slide it right into position. We still have another coat, probably 2 coats of paint that we're going to put on here. And so that's going to tighten those little gaps up. And as you'll notice, when you're sitting back on the couch or viewing the fireplace from here, you really can't even see that there's a little trap door there held on by magnets. A final coat of paint, and we are wrapping this project up. Turned out really great. I'm super happy with the results, and most importantly, the homeowner absolutely loves it. They especially loved the little trapdoor concept we added so that they can access the outlet behind the frame. If you have any questions, drop a comment. I'll be happy to get back to you. If you need custom advice on your project, reach out. I'll be happy to help guide you along the way. And if you'd like to see more content like this, subscribe to our channel, or go ahead and check out the next video in the top of your screen right now.